Hi guys, and welcome back!
In this video, we want to investigate 8 arguments on why Canada might objectively be the best country in the world. And before you click away from the video, hear me out. We're not saying that Canada is perfect. There's a ton of things that Canada doesn't do well. Take healthcare, for instance, or how about the housing crisis?
But we've been wondering, what makes the country comparatively great or the worst? There's been a lot of juicy things to criticize Canada and its government for in the last 2 years. So we decided to look at the bigger picture. What is it that Canada does that makes it score tops of the list as one of the most powerful and livable countries in the world? What can other countries learn from Canada?
Let's dive into it.
Immigration is important. In fact, it's critical for survival of Canada, because Canadians are just not making enough babies to create enough labor and to keep the country growing. Luckily, this country recognizes what it needs for survival, and as a result, it consistently ranked as the #1 country for immigration year over year. Germany, Australia tend to lag behind. There is over 100 immigration programs to choose from, and Canada has gotten pretty good at integrating them into the new society. Now, before you say anything, I'm not saying they're perfect at it. There are thousands of immigrants that struggle finding a job because they lack Canadian experience or because they experience some kind of discrimination. But looking at the top 10 countries who focus on immigration, Canada has created by far the best adaptation experience. There are over 500 organizations that exist on different levels that helps newcomers to arrive, excel and thrive in Canada. This includes learning the language, getting mentorship, meeting people and finding a job. And you're not gonna get that in Germany or the UK. Among other countries that count on immigration, Canada has so far done the best job compared to any other country. And the fact that 85% of permanent residents end up becoming citizens in this country and stay in Canada is a solid number to support that.
Diversity is fun. Meeting people from different cultures, getting to know their traditions, and finding sudden and unexpected commonalities in our cultures is oddly fulfilling. Canada is one of the most culturally diverse countries, welcoming over 200 nationalities every year. I would even argue that the true white Canadian has actually become a minority by now. Looking at the census data, only 32% of population actually self-reports as Canadian. This group is followed by broadly European and Asian groups. Toronto also holds the reign of the most cultural city in the world. How about that as a title? What that means in practice is Canada creates an even playing field for humans of every culture, background and religion. No matter where you come from, you will find a place of belonging and a community that will accept and support you. No other country on earth has reached the same level of tolerance, diversity and inclusion than Canada. And if you disagree, I'd love to hear your thoughts on which country you think is doing it better than Canada. And as I say that, I'm being mindful of the hate crime reports and discrimination in Canada that some of our audience have pointed out in our previous videos. We do not want to ignore the fact that, unfortunately, idiots exist in every country on Earth, and Canada is not immune to that. The good news is Canada has plans to double its population in the next 40 years. And something tells me that white people is not the population that will help Canada reach that number.
Diversity for us spans beyond just cultural and ethnical belonging. Canada is also one of the most progressive countries when it comes to general inclusivity, like gender, sexual orientation, abortion rights, mental and physical ability. And you know what? Even mentioning these words in some countries, like our neighbor, makes some people go crazy. Canada is one of the most tolerant countries, continuously issuing progressive laws and serving as an example for the rest of the world. It was one of the first countries to legalize gay marriage and cannabis on a federal level. Its construction laws are made with accessibility in mind, making sure that everything is accessible for people on wheelchair or those with impaired vision. I'll pause here for a second if you think that any of the things that I've mentioned above are not a good thing. You can turn this video off right now. If you're still with us, I'll just add that Canada is a leader in such areas as personal rights, tolerance, and education. All that thanks to Canada's top-ranking universities and multicultural model of education. It's also one of the most welcoming countries for refugees, and it boasts its social welfare policies.
Canada's politics is considered boring by poli-sci nerds. But just like in US, there are still two major parties in Canada that always go head-to-head. But their confrontations are fairly mild, and their policies don't tend to swing too far left or far right. Canadian politics reflects one of the main traits of Canadians: it's utterly polite. So naturally, there is a lot less polarization among people, and frankly, people don't care as much about politics, which creates a more peaceful and friendly environment in the country. Canada also does not have a strong political voice on the international arena, and it does not actively participate in wars. And when it does, it usually just mimics the views of the UK. I personally hope that things would stay this way, and the recent cockfights between the Liberals and Conservatives don't get out of hand too much. I'm saying that because unfortunately, I know what it feels like, as I've had the first-hand, vivid experience of what it's like to live through political turmoil and try to build your life in a politically unstable country.
Canada has the 9th largest economy in the world as of 2020, with a GDP of over $1.5 trillion. It has a very well-developed services and energy industry, as well as international trade with the world's largest economies, the US, China, the UK, and other members of the Commonwealth. While doing research for this video, we found an interesting insight on Canada's poverty rate. While it still exists in Canada and floats around 6 to 10%, it is actually lower than most of the world's developed countries. Germany, probably the richest country in Europe, is at 16%, so is Japan, while the United States numbers are at 11%, and the United Kingdom is at whopping 22%. People in Canada have a relatively stable life with not a big wealth gap and job opportunities outpacing the population growth and a fairly strong Canadian dollar. All this contributes to a fairly stable and moderately prosperous life in Canada. It means that if you live in or decide to move to Canada, your chances of ending up poor for whatever reason are much lower than many other developed countries.
Let's be real, there are more job openings than people willing to work in Canada. And I'm actually not sure whether that's a good thing for the country, but that's the reality in Canada. It has a huge territory, so lots of infrastructure needs to be built, spanning across all this land to serve all the people in all corners of the country. But there are just not enough people for that. Population in Canada is just a measly 38 million. That's 10 times less than the US and 20 times less than the whole Europe. Today, there are many job opportunities. I've spoken to many employers in the last few months as a part of my own research, and many highlight how much they struggle finding people who are willing to work. And that's exactly why Canada has one of the best immigration policies in the world, because it tries to attract young and skilled professionals to the country, offering them work permits or even permanent residency from the start. The economy of Canada is diverse, and that means that there are many opportunities in various fields across the country.
Canada has the abundance of beautiful and untouched nature. Unlike Europe, for example, where there is barely any untouched land left. Of course, there are other parts of the world where land is untouched, but that's mostly because it's inaccessible. Canada is famous for its national and provincial parks. They are well maintained, and some have very strict rules to make sure they can preserve the nature and its animals. You can often drive or hike for miles and miles away without encountering civilization, and that kind of experience is becoming more and more scarce in the developed world. Going camping, hiking, and spending time outdoors is one of the most common activities in Canada, and that's one of the habits I've developed here too. The beautiful outdoors are so amazing in Canada that Anastasia and I cannot keep ourselves away from sharing it with you. So if you're into outdoors, make sure to check our Parks Canada series.
Canada is a safe country. It has consistently ranked really well for internal conflicts, level of crime, and political stability. In addition to good job opportunities, great access to healthcare, and effective government, Canada has some of the most notoriously friendly people in the world. Canada has a crime rate that's about a third of its neighbor, the United States. In a survey conducted in 2018, they showed that 84% of Canadians said that they feel safe in their country. There are still numerous communities and towns where people don't even bother locking their doors. The police is generally trusted, not feared. And people are calm, easygoing, and welcoming because they don't feel the need to be hostile towards strangers, or they don't have to be aware of their surroundings all the time. This calm and safe environment is for sure one of the reasons why Canadians have a high life expectancy, which is around 83 years.
Of course, there is no place that is perfect, but do you think Canada manages to come close?
Which of the points we've discussed matter the most to you? Please share your thoughts in the comments below.
And after you do that, please don't forget to click the like button below and subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. And choose what to watch next right here.
And see you in the next video.
Take care!